official welcome then to our FAQ webinar here on the 2nd of June 2026, as we're going to be exploring the ins and outs of the Asia-Europe Training and Youth Summit on Science and Technology Diplomacy 2026. The open call launched just recently on the 19th of May and will be open until the 21st of June. So here we are today to answer any questions that you have about the program, the eligibility, and also your, of course, participation or potential participation in the program. So we're hoping that after today, you have no further questions or concerns and that you will be ready to submit your applications before the 21st of June. At this stage, allow me to just quickly give an overview of what we have planned for today, but this is really a session that will be shaped by your input. So as an attendee, you can submit your questions using the Q&A function here on Zoom. You will find it in your Zoom bar in the platform, and you can there submit any questions that you have to us. And of course, also there's a function that allows you to upvote certain questions and also comment on questions. So if you have similar questions that have already been posed, you can simply like that one, and it will give me an indication that there are multiple people that want to have the answer to the same questions. But before we get into the actual Q&A section, we'll give you a general introduction to ASEF, so the Asia-Europe Foundation that is hosting and organizing the project, and of course also a general overview on the program. Give you an insight into the key objectives and what you can learn by participating. But we also have the opportunity to discuss with some alumni. So if you want to know more about what it's actually like being part of the program, what you learn and the experiences that you can take with you after having been part of it, you can ask your questions directly to them instead of asking them to me, because of course, as an organizer, I will have a bit of a biased opinion on the program as well. And then once we wrapped up with our alumni, we'll continue into more details on the program, so eligibility, selection criteria, and also a bit on the process and when we will be able to announce any results of the application process before we close as well. So allow me to set the stage a little bit then on ASEF and what we do within our organization. So we were created in 1997, the Asia-Europe Foundation, or ASEF, as you will hear me say most of the time for short. And we're an intergovernmental not-for-profit organization and are based here in Singapore, which is where I'm running today's session. But as an organization, we span across, of course, Asia and Europe, as the name entails. And we have 53 member states, or members in general, covering 51 countries in Asia and Europe, as well as the European Union and the ASEAN Secretariat. So through this, we cover really 14 time zones, and as I mentioned, 51 countries, a lot of different people and backgrounds coming together, which is part of the mission of the organization as a whole, which is really to facilitate bi-regional knowledge exchange, but also peer-to-peer collaboration, fostering communities to be able to then come together and start collaborations beyond our projects, and then be able to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as other general global challenges that we are facing in the two regions. We're funded by this member states that we have, and through this we're also able to make all of our programs fully funded, but we'll come into more on the funding and any participation later today as well. But as an organization, we cover a number of different thematic areas. I work in the education department, and that's where this project, the Asia-Europe Training and Youth Summit, falls. But we also work across culture, governance, economy, sustainable development, public health, media. This is to name a few. And of course, under them are also different subtopics that are relevant to us. But for the education department, we work mainly across three. So we are working within the youth sector, where this project falls. We also work with higher education and higher education institutions, and also with teachers. In the education department, we work specifically, of course, on education and across a number of different pillars. And we contribute to the aims of the Asia-Europe Foundation still within the same thematic areas. So we connect people Of course, we have opportunities both online and on-site for people-to-people exchanges to connect with experts within specific thematic areas and fields, and also then to be able to connect to younger people that we do specifically with senior policymakers and senior officials to be able to bridge this gap between different generations and also to ensure that youth voices are heard in different spaces. And we do this through the facilitation of online learnings, on-site events, youth summits, and also different experiences that build these networks, as I mentioned, to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. And on this note, under the youth pillar, we have been working with the topic of science and technology diplomacy for 2 years now, fully, since 2024. And the aim of this project in particular is to foster these connections specifically among young diplomats, policymakers, research managers, to really empower the next generation of leaders to contribute to this field and build on Asia-Europe networks. But yes, the aim really here is to connect the young people that are interested in the intersection of science, technology, innovation, and policymaking, to be able to provide a platform for them to have contributions to this field in a valuable manner. And we started out in 2024 by conducting a mapping exercise within our member countries. And this constituted a mapping exercise, as mentioned, where we were looking at the different strategies, activities, stakeholders, and different actions that are being run by the countries within their regions. So does the country have a strategy on science and technology diplomacy? If yes, which focus areas are they looking at? If no, are they part of any regional groups or initiatives that they are contributing to? Or is there even a plan to contribute to this field? And through this, we then were able to get an overview of the status of science and technology diplomacy within our constituency. And after this, we wanted to see how can we contribute to this field. So knowing that some countries are doing more than others, or perhaps are more active, what can we do as an organization, and particularly for youth, to help build a foundation here? So in 2025, we focused in on a few countries for a country-focused workshop series, where we highlighted a couple of countries in Asia that are doing work within science and technology diplomacy, but aren't necessarily getting the global recognition for it. So by this, we were looking at the different government structures that are in place, the research and science institutions and what they're doing, as well as what the business and private sector is doing in this field. And then we also hosted our first ever Asia-Europe Training and Youth Summit on Science and Technology Diplomacy. And of course, this year we're bringing it back and organizing it again. I'm very excited to be talking about what we did last year and what we'll be doing this year, and how you can potentially be a part of it as well. And at this moment, of course, it's easy for me to say what we did and show you the highlights, but really what we want to do is give you an opportunity to ask our alumni what they thought and what they experienced during this program last year. So at this stage, allow me to introduce you to our alumni who participated both in the training and on-site for the Youth Summit in Copenhagen, Denmark, where we hosted it last year. So without further ado, I'm going to just briefly give an introduction to them and then allow them to take the stage themselves, to introduce themselves, a little bit what they do and how they got started in science and technology diplomacy. So first up, allow me to introduce to you Dr. Gary Kett, who is from Ireland and is working at HEMA and has coming from this more research background as well. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties now as well, I think. Here. There we go. Hello. So, Gary, thank you so much for being with us here today and allow me to bring in the others, and then I'll let you introduce yourself to our audience. So, secondly, we also have Cindy, who is working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Indonesia. Thank you so much, Cindy, for being with us. And I see now also we have Paulo with us joining as well, who is from the Philippines. And last but not least, we have also Sharon Legault, who is from Belgium. And I think it's easier for you to share a little bit about yourselves and what you're doing in the field of science and technology diplomacy, how you got introduced to this. And then I have a couple of questions to pick your brains about your experience, but I'm sure also our participants will have some. But without further ado, Gary, would you like to first introduce yourself to our audience today?
Thank you, Linnea. Yes, it's a great pleasure, and I'm very happy to be helping with this webinar today and helping to share our perspectives from the training initiative last year. It was a real fantastic experience. So my name is Gary Kett, as Linnea introduced me. I'm a marine environmental researcher coming from Ireland. I studied zoology and marine environmental science in the University College of Cork, where I got my PhD in climate change and aquatic animal health. And I'm now working at the Centre for Interdisciplinary and Environmental Marine Research in CIMAR in Porto in Portugal. So my background is really very science-based, I suppose, but I've always been interested in working in the science policy and society interface. I'm also now working with the Euromarine Association as the engagement and networking lead for their early career researcher network called Oyster. So engaged in a lot of different activities for early career capacity building and networking and trying to help people find their way in their career paths. So it's a great pleasure to be here and thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Next up, Cindy, would you like to give a bit of more background on who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much, Linnea. And I'm so happy to be here to see my fellow colleagues whom I met last year in Copenhagen in person. Also, we've been through a 3-month virtual training. Also, last year it's been a pleasure to embark on that journey together with you. So, my name is Cindy Nurfitri. I am from Indonesia. I'm a diplomat, so I work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. The reason why I signed myself up to the program because earlier in my career, I was exposed to the issue of internet governance, although currently I am working slightly in a different area in daily basis, but I am still following the portfolio of cybersecurity, internet governance. So when I see the open call of the program last year, it really piqued my interest, and I think it was a really great decision for me to take last year. So I'm happy to be here. I look forward to discuss more about the experience and getting to know many of you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. And I see also now that we have people introducing themselves in the chat. Feel free to do so. This is an opportunity for you also to meet like-minded people and perhaps connect via LinkedIn or anything like this. So you can do as we also had Fatima do and give a bit of a background on what you do, and then perhaps also share your LinkedIn. But Fatima will come to your question later as well. Thank you. Next up, Paolo, would you like to give an introduction to yourself?
Thank you, Linia. I hope I'm audible. Hello, everyone. My name is Paolo Araune, and I'm from the Philippines. I currently serve as Research Deputy Director and Assistant Professor here at Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan. My work focuses on research governance, ethics, and policy development, and faculty development as well. And actually, my background is in mathematics, research, and higher education leadership. But over time, I realized that research does not exist in isolation. So that's why I got interested with the ASEF diplomacy. And I applied for it because I also learned that many of the challenges that we have today, like AI governance, climate change, health, sustainability, these are issues that need countries cultures and different institutions to work together to have shared solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo. And last but not least, Sharon.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Lecoq. I am a research attaché at the Permanent Representation of Belgium to the European Union. And I also work at the Belgian Science Policy Office, which is the Belgian governmental instance covering science policy. At the same time, I'm also a research and teaching fellow at the University of Leuven. So I'm also kind of in between that world, between research and science and policy and diplomacy. I have a quite eclectic background in Egyptology and Arab studies, and also in international relations, and also quite eclectic early career working at NGOs, working at musea, but then also working at the university where I did my PhD and my postdoc in international relations. I'm also have been a lecturer in Amsterdam. So really in between those worlds, involving both science, research, and diplomacy. So getting into this specific field kind of came naturally to me, and is also why I applied to the training, to this get together, because it really spoke to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. And I know all of you touched upon it a little bit, but I'll invite you to perhaps develop a little bit more on it, because of course, all of you are coming from very different backgrounds. And I think what we've learned in this 2 years as an organization working with science and technology diplomacy is that there are many different avenues to approach science diplomacy and also work with science diplomacy. So perhaps each of you can expand a little bit on how you got involved in the field, and then also in relation to the training, what made you apply, and how you thought perhaps that the learnings from the training could be applied within your role in your professional career. So anyone who would like to start us off, and then we can go around as well.
I would like to, if that's okay. I kind of very briefly skimmed over at the start, so I'll explain a little bit more. But coming from an environmental background, I was always really interested in how we make good decisions for collective benefit, and what are the kind of mechanisms and roles and ways that we as scientists, we as individuals, we as people can show up to the different places where we engage with others and with the world, and how we can collectively come together to understand the issues we're facing and drive towards the right direction for whichever issue that is. So in particular, working in the marine space and for coastal environmental science, it's a very transdisciplinary environment, and it's a very multinational environment. By its very nature, ocean is one of the greatest global commons, at least in my experience. So trying to manage this is a very complicated process, and there's a lot of different features and a lot of different parameters to be involved. Understanding the drivers, be they sociological, economical, emotional, or physical and biological. So understanding these and understanding how we can come together to really manage these in a way that serves humanity, and that's forward-looking into the future, and can really help us to move into a world that's a healthier, cleaner, more fair, and more just world. So through this process of moving through science into science policy and science society, I started working here in CIMAR, the Interdisciplinary Center for Marine Environmental Science, and we are very engaged and applied science institute. So working with the local communities, the national government, the regional, with the European Union quite a lot, and also on an international basis, being a major point in the Atlantic. So there's a lot of different layers to the types of cooperation mechanisms that you need. And the more I started working in this space, the more interested I was around I suppose, the theory and the practice also of diplomacy, of cooperation, of international agreements, of the processes that bring us together and narrow those and expand the former. So through this process of engaging with beyond science into society with different governments and on an ocean science diplomacy level, I started working a lot more in the space, getting really interested in it, and then found the ASIF Science Diplomacy Training, Science Technology Diplomacy Training Initiative. And as Sharon said, it really spoke to me. It felt like it really was exploring a lot of the questions I wanted to know more about. So really, I suppose I was interested in knowing what are the processes and the mechanisms, as I explained, but also who are the people who are doing this, who are in this space. And some of the experts and the facilitators that we heard from last year were incredibly impressive people, with incredibly rich experiences and backgrounds. And it was a real honor to be able to share to hear from them and to share their experiences and ask these pressing questions that we've had and to learn more about especially what we didn't even know about or what I hadn't known about going into it. So this was a really key point for me, and I think that was completely fulfilled throughout the course. It was a very those questions I had going in were primarily satisfied coming out. So it was a real honor, a real pleasure, and my career has definitely benefited from it. So it's a bit more of my why. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. And it's great that you had this approach of it wasn't only learning perhaps for you, but also how you then could contribute to your specific field in this matter. And it really is, as you say, a global challenge to work with the oceans. And I think we also had a specific session that explored a little bit also this aspect of oceans and climate in particular through this. And for those that are interested in this also, can I recommend the workshop series that we did on Indonesia, where we also explored this as part of the session, as well in Malaysia. So depending on the countries, there might be certain questions also that are more pressing for you. But I do think that in this program, we also explore many different avenues of science and technology diplomacy and their different effects on these different themes. So thank you, Gary, for sharing that. Anyone would like to go next? I think Sharon, perhaps I'll come back to you because you did mention that all of this background was how you got started into the field of science and technology diplomacy. But do you want to share a bit, perhaps more on what intrigued you specifically about the program, and then what learnings you've taken from it since?
Yes, I can. I can. Actually, the idea of science diplomacy already came a little bit before because when I was doing my PhD research, I talked a lot to diplomats. I was doing research on how the European Union could interact with actors that it itself finds difficult to interact with. Actors such as armed groups, for example, or hybrid actors, as we call them, these kinds of actors that actually are difficult counterparts in international relations. And it was actually at this time already that it was interesting to see that I was talking to diplomats, but diplomats were also trying to talk to me and learn from me and my insights as a researcher into the field, and maybe also getting insights that they as practitioners could not get. So this interconnection, this cross-fertilization already came before as an interest, but then the training came up specifically particularly well timing for me because at the time, also in my personal career, I started combining research and policy. As you just said, we started a task force on science diplomacy at the Belgian federal level. So yeah, really trying to set this up also at the Belgian level. Yeah, this training was amazing for this, right? It gave me the right background. It gave me the also the theoretical insights at the beginning. To really get a good background in what the field of science diplomacy is. Also the big questions, how you find science diplomacy, how do you go about it, also practical experience for people already doing this. This was highly valuable for me at the position that I was then into. And then, also very specifically as a research attaché in the last few months, we negotiated the EU Framework for Science Diplomacy Council recommendation. We were actually able to give input also from Belgium, from insights that I gained through this experience. Specifically, also hearing the Commission say that okay, this is intended to also look into how do you go about having dialogue? How do you go about having science interactions, even when political engagement is difficult? And this is also one of the key takeaways from the negotiation process, that it is indeed very difficult. This balancing of science as a common good, transcending differences. In respect of mutual interest on the one hand, and then on the other hand, also having science, knowledge, technology used in geopolitical competition and really used in foreign policy. And I think those things were really things that were also discussed within the program. The balancing acts, the nuances there, I really took a lot away from, and this also helped me in my current position, as I explained.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Yeah, it's funny because of course we did a very very heightened simulation game with a lot of different stakes perhaps than that was on your agenda for this. So for background, for those of you joining us today, during the training, and we'll also last year, which we'll also be doing this year, we held a simulation game where participants were invited to take on different roles. Both within government, within different research institutions, within businesses, etc., and to act as though they were from that institution with that background and those interests to negotiate certain deals. So this is just one thing that you can, of course, learn from our training. And as Sharon mentioned, also another aspect of this is how do you balance different interests? So we also explore beyond just the foundations of science diplomacy. What does it mean? Also what this means to work within different institutions, interacting between different institutions, having those types of backgrounds and interests, as well as also biases, both personal and also cultural, depending on your region or background that you have. So these are just some of the aspects we explore in the training, but you can read more on that also on our website later. But yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. Would you like to go then perhaps to Paulo, as I see on my screen here?
Thank you. There were honestly a lot of takeaways, but I think to just mention three. The first one would be science diplomacy is ultimately about trust building. So working as research deputy director, I am used to collaborating with different local and international researchers. And I realized that collaborations only become sustainable if there's transparency, inclusiveness, and mutual respect, which values that were practiced during the ASEF training and summit. I also would like to highlight that second one is diplomacy can both enable and shape science. So it's a mutual it's actually also a mutual collaboration between diplomats and scientists, wherein I saw during the workshops, I saw how policies, geopolitical realities, and ethical considerations directly affect science and technology related concerns like access to technology, mobility, innovation, and even the collaboration that I am highlighting. And third is the intercultural dialogue. One of my reasons why I applied for the training is to really learn from diverse perspectives across Asia and Europe. And I did really learn a lot coming from the Philippines to being able to talk about a lot of intercultural and global issues from different countries. I realized that the workshops in the diplomacy always starts with listening. And I think Linya mentioned about the simulation game. One of the things that I learned from that simulation is that you're not always the best person in the room. It reminded me the importance of humility and also being able to be more considerate with the opinions and the takeaways of other people, in especially in terms of serious concerns like global challenges. And coming home, I became more intentional as a person who manages research in the university. I became more intentional in making sure that researchers highlight more collaborative, more inclusive, and more international driven researches. And at the same time, I've become more committed to connecting research into more realistic and practical solutions, which I also definitely learned during my entire summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I'm glad to hear that you had lovely learnings from it and also appreciated the simulation game. And I think this part that you mentioned on the intercultural learnings and the learnings that not only do you have different views and, as you say, knowledge, also perhaps you're not always the smartest in the room. Sometimes you are, or on a specific topic. So learning where to go about these avenues as well is really important. Last but not least, Cindy.
I think I would like to agree with what Gary, Sharon, and Paulo has mentioned. And coming from a government perspective, I don't know if any one of the attendees here also coming from public sector of our government. One of the biggest takeaway that I see from the whole program is that first, of course, there has been a tremendous opportunity for science and technology diplomacy. One as the new career path for everybody who would like to, focus on this sector, whether you are perhaps now a government official or you are working with a scientific background. There are a lot of opportunities now for you to see that science diplomacy has been like a new frontier career, and you can try to to see it as a new opportunity. And second, as Paulo mentioned, that is an important for everybody also to be able to bridge scientific community and diplomatic community. One of the biggest takeaway also from the workshop is that how do we able to communicate strategically to our counterpart? Like, for example, I am a diplomat. I perhaps not really. I couldn't really speak. Marine biologist terminology as Gary, probably more fluent than me. But perhaps Gary could speak to me in a simple language or in a strategic way so that his work, his important findings could be communicated and could be, also shared globally as part of the solution to many global challenges. And before I came back to Jakarta, I was working in Indonesian mission in New York. I was in the working a lot with many colleagues in New York and also in the UN headquarters. And I think in the past few years, and I believe in the coming years also, there has been a new trend, what we call the Secretary General called scientifically backed global solution. So whether it's climate change or whether it's pandemic, we no longer want, talk shop in the, in the resolution or in any document that countries, adopted in the UN. So we need to engage the scientific community. And that's why I think this program, how we can build network, how we can bridge also that strategic engagement, strategic communication, and how we can also be more adaptive, both me as a diplomat to be able to catch up with all the findings in scientific perhaps research, and also in the other way around, how scientific community can also catch up with what is happening currently in New York, for example. So it's a very great platform to be.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Yeah, we're all part of a very global system, and I think, as mentioned, I think every day I hear, oh, in an increasingly global world and an increasingly interconnected world, and all of these formulations. But it is true, and it's also what we're trying to kind of promote with ASEF as well. That these connections are truly important to foster and to understand one another. So very happy to have helped at least the four of you, and I hope also the rest of our cohort to have these learnings as well. But then perhaps now that we've talked a little bit more on the learnings, of course, it's the main thing that we aim for here with the program, but connected to the learnings or connected to your experience, I want to ask each of you to perhaps share what your favorite moment from the training was. And of course, both of you or all four of you, I was looking at two of you at the same time. The four of you joined us both on site and online for the training. So perhaps I can invite you to share a moment from each that was memorable for you, and perhaps give a little bit of an insight on what it actually looks like and the practicality of being part of the training is like. And I would like to invite perhaps Sharon to share first this time.
Sure, yes. So for me, I mean, the learning sessions, they actually started with, some kind of lectures, and then there was a Q&A and everything. But what then it really became very interesting also for me, and what I really enjoyed were then these possibilities for breakout rooms. You get these different perspectives, these different questions from all the participants, from all the peers. But then when you actually get to learn the person behind those, get to know the person behind those questions, you see where they come from, and you learn actually much more. Especially also about interactions between Europe and Asia, how things are different, how things are actually the same. And for this, I really, really appreciated that there was also a session given or dedicated to values, biases, and worldviews. Specifically in the context of science diplomacy. So building this intercultural awareness was actually part of the program online. And then, I also participated in the youth summits and the live sessions. And there was also a session dedicated to these UNESCO story circles, which were actually focused on really fostering this intercultural understanding, learning where people come from, getting to know their trajectories, but also their worldviews, and how this shapes then the communique afterwards that was circulated from the program, how this shapes the interactions, the conversations that we had. This was actually my favorite part of the program.
Oh, lovely. Very happy to hear that, because we, as a program, of course, let me give some background to those joining us. We focus each week on a specific topic. And you'll see more of that when we give the overview of the program later. But each week is focused on a topic, and we cover it through a webinar, which is Sharon shared a bit more, let's say, passive learning. You have a webinar with a lecture and a Q&A. You have the opportunity, like here today, to interact and provide your input, but more on a listening basis. But then later in the week, we join for a workshop in a Zoom meeting where we have these breakout rooms and the opportunity to really workshop and discuss the learnings from the week and share the different perspectives. And in the week of intercultural, we had the opportunity to really delve more deeper into this aspect, which is, as we see it, a very important layer of science diplomacy. And having that in understanding really will help you, or at least be more mindful of how you approach a negotiation, a simple coffee with a colleague from perhaps another country. So these things are really important to us as an organization as well. Just wanted to share that as well. Thank you very much, Sharon. Perhaps then let's go back to Cindy. So I'm going a little bit in a different order.
I think one of the most interesting part of the learning process, I totally agree with Sharon, is to meet fellow participants, because when we were in the virtual training, I think there was hundreds of us. So sometimes when we go to breakout room, I'm like surprised of how diverse we are and how, unique everyone does. Like someone is doing cultural heritage preservation, the other are doing, scientific attaché in the embassy. So it's something new for me, and it's really interesting. And also how to see the framework of cooperation. I think if I compare what the EU has, for example, you already has Horizon, you already has like a strong network within the EU system as well. And then when we learn about the work of scientific attaché in bilateral embassy, like for example in Copenhagen or in in Brussels, many of you already has scientific attaché, but working like bilaterally. But for Indonesia, we are not there yet. Like we have one scientific embassy in Vienna, but that's our only attaché. So I think that's really interesting to see the framework itself. And of course, for me, coming from a legal background, international relations work in daily basis, so I got to learn scientific diplomacy like more in a baby step. So I got to learn the history of it. I got to learn the examples of it, like from like so many period we learned from that, from that start. So I think everyone starting from the same level playing field, and then coming to the second and third week of the program, we got to apply that in discussion, in simulation, and then in the summit, we got to come up with communicating. It was the first one, I believe. So we got to decide what are the principles of science and technology diplomacy that we want from the perspective of youth. So the learning process has been really incremental, but also complete. So I'm glad to be able to learn many of that.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And yes, for those of you who do not know, on site for the Youth Summit, the youth communique that's been referenced was a document that was prepared by the participants on site. Cindy and Sharon has shared with the insights and the recommendations for the future of science diplomacy from the perspective of youth. So the young voices that was then presented at the Second European Science Diplomacy Conference that was that the Youth Summit was connected to in Copenhagen. So an opportunity, as I mentioned, similar to the goals of ASIF, to provide a platform for young people to be heard in these fields. And we will also be preparing a youth communique in Jakarta during the Youth Summit this year. So for those that are selected for that will be part of the process as well. Okay, Paolo, would you like to go next? Share your favorite memory from the training.
I think they already answered my favorite. So I guess I would like to be more specific with well, for the online, I actually enjoy the entire online training, because it it was definitely a learning experience, learning from the speakers and then also from the breakout rooms. But I also would like to highlight once again the simulation game, wherein we we're trained to negotiate and to also compromise with agreements and disagreements among the members of the particular simulation. It was just fascinating for me because we experience how diplomacy becomes or requires balancing ethics, innovation, and also national interest. At the same time, it made me realize that diplomacy is not about winning arguments, but it's about creating shared solutions. And another one would be the intercultural interactions throughout the program. I would like to emphasize that ASEF has this platform of interdisciplinary um, approach, and which makes it very much appreciative because from different backgrounds we're able to talk about um, shared challenges, relatable situations, and I'm also amazed about the backgrounds of my fellow youth across Asia and Europe. And I guess the online sessions allowed us to connect with diverse perspectives from across Asia and Europe. And the on-site summit made those connections more personal and meaningful. The conversations that we had during the workshops and even during the dinners and the informal exchanges were just impactful as the online sessions. And I would like to say that it reminded us that human relationships are definitely at the center of diplomacy.
Oh, that's really nice. I don't have much to add on that. I think it's a really nice sentiment. And yeah, these people connections are really important to us. And within the organization, we strive for it to go, of course, beyond the program. So I hope that the people here have kept in touch afterwards and that you continue to do so and build collaborations with each other later on as well. Gary, would you like to share your favorite moments as well?
I will, but I have to warn you, it's not going to be very original because there's definitely shared feelings. I think we all came away with a lot of um, the same kind of impressions from a lot of the course. There was so much of it that really stuck with me, and apparently stuck with my peers as well. That overlapped. So it was really it was hard to choose one or two favorites. But I think. In particular, let me reinforce what my peers here said that, whether it's through the quantum simulation game, which I really enjoy doing, um, not only being in a different position, being a scientist, acting as a diplomat, but also, as Colleagues was saying, learning how each other interacts as well. So how I might treat the role of a foreign minister may be different to how somebody else might treat the role of a foreign minister. And this is why it was quite good that we did this simulation game because, as the result of what he's saying, we got to have these breakouts and really meet with each other and get to know each other and understand the perspectives and values and drivers of how we engage with each other. So this was really exciting and really yeah, really fascinating, I think. And also something Sharon touched on earlier as well, this idea of working with people you may disagree with or seem like it disagrees with at first. This is of course very challenging, but incredibly rewarding. Um, and I think coming from my background, I was so used to seeing science as very much on the basis of which all things should be based on. So I think after learning so much from so many people in such a very multinational and multidisciplinary space, um, yeah, I've really learned to kind of understand better all of the different factors that come into play in governance and decision making and cooperation. So I found this really, really fascinating. And as one of our facilitators and speakers said last year, I remember it always stuck with me, if you can't agree on everything, find one thing you agree on and work with that. And that really stuck with me because it's like, okay, even in the most contentious of situations as our world is growing more globalized, but also more multipolar, and cooperation can sometimes seem very challenging, seemingly impossible at times, but there's always one thing, and finding that one thing and using that as a basis really is dependent on the relationships again. So aspect of the whole course was the connections with my friends here. It was really one of the more impressive parts of the entire initiative, I think, was getting to know all of my peers, not just here in joining us today, but everyone who's part of the online and the in-person parts of the course. It allowed me to feel a lot more confident in myself, knowing that what my peers were doing was such excellent work as well, and building the connection, building the network that never ended after the initiative ended. If there's something going on in the ocean science diplomacy space, and it, is involving Indonesia or Philippines, I will always feel comfortable knowing I have a space to reach out to and say, "Hey, Cindy Ballo, who can we talk to here, or can you put me in touch with somebody?" So this is a really valuable thing that I didn't expect to come away with. I expected to come away with a lot of the learning outcomes for sure, and some more experience. But the relationships development style of it was really foundational, I think. And a lot of this again was supported by and reinforced by this intercultural values learning, both the online part and the UNESCO story tables, where you're really looking inflectively, intrapersonally, on what your own drivers and values are, and yes, helping yourself to understand, I suppose, how you interact and makes what brings the one thing you agree on become many things you agree on. So I think this was really foundational for me. So I know that's not one thing, and maybe I'm repeating some of the things my friend said, but it's true. The relationships was foundational, and the experiences then of the quantum simulation game, or even perhaps one thing that also stuck out to me was how we had 1 week on how diplomacy impacts science. And that really helped me in communicating science diplomacy to my science-only colleagues or science technology colleagues. Understanding, that maybe we come from a scientific background and we see how science impacts diplomacy and we see the barriers, but understanding it from the other perspectives, and especially hearing from my colleagues who work within the diplomacy space, the kind of challenges that they face in their day-to-day or their decision making. This was really helpful in understanding the wider perspective, the global kind of level of how we can make these cooperative agreements and governance. So yeah, all of this was really stand out to me as my several favorite moments from the initiative.
Thank you very much, Gary. And I'm glad that it's not only just one thing that is stuck out, because of course then hopefully we've done our job well. But yeah, it's really great to hear that all of you have had your own learnings. Of course, there are some overlaps, but also we see here that there are different things that also stood out and have helped you in your own professional capacities and in also your own science diplomacy journeys. So that's really great to hear. But of course, with us here today, we have perhaps a couple of people who are just starting out in their science and technology diplomacy journey, and they're looking to know if this program is for them and if it's their start to it, and how they can engage. So I don't want to keep you all that much longer, so I want to finish up with a question, which is more to say. Promotes the program. So if someone wants to apply but is not really sure yet if they should, what's one thing that you can say to them to perhaps convince them to submit that application in the end, or a tip or a trick for the application? You can take your pick here on what to go, but I would advise you, or perhaps ask you to keep it short so that we can let you go then, and then we'll also continue with some of the questions that I see in the Q&A, which is more related also to eligibility. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we'll take that once we're wrapped up here with our alumni. So yeah, either you want to share the final thing that can get someone to apply, or a tip that you have in drafting your application. I think we go back to original order, so I throw it back to you, Gary, and then we'll go back to everyone.
Sure, I'd be happy to. If what I've said already isn't enough of a convincing pressure, then allow me to say, I also questioned at the start if I not if I wanted to, but if I had the time to, if I had the capacity to, if I could integrate it with it's going to be valuable to me. And yes, absolutely, completely. I would advise anyone who's considering it at all to carry on with the application and try to submit. I've participated in a number of different training initiatives, online and in person, and I really cannot recommend this one highly enough. You will be received with compassion and excellence and warmth, but also, a lot of direction and support and guidance from some really fantastic people, both in the facilitators, in the educators, in the speakers, and in the peers of your network. So wish you all good luck in your applications.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, now I'm trying to remember the original order. I think Cindy was next in the original order.
I think one of the key aspect that we have to mention in our application is not only what we do currently in the present tense, but also our vision on how we are planning or envision ourselves to contribute something on the daily work that we have. Because I believe when I see all of my colleagues in the program, like everyone are doing like an important work and excellent work, and I think sometimes we are not we don't know, or we are yet to realize that what we do matters, and the reflection and how we try to envision what we do and how we contribute this to solving any single problem in the world. I think that's a very good example and a very good point that we have to mention. It means that we want to do the program not only for ourselves but also for others. And the one single important reason why I think everyone should apply, because the summit will be held in Jakarta, in my home country. I think Jakarta has a lot to offer. There's a myriad scientific community here. It's also a hub for the ASEAN organization. It's the organization of 10 countries in Southeast Asia. So I believe that you can see how ASEAN, work perhaps differently than the EU framework. And also it has great food. So hopefully one day, if you are selected to the program and you are coming to Jakarta as a participant of the summit, you got to experience a lot new, culturally.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And yes, for those selected, we'll look forward to come to Jakarta to see you as well. Paolo, next. Final
I
word.
think before anything, I would like to say that the ASEF team have been kind and organized and very, very much accommodating. And you will be in good hands if you join the diplomacy summit and training. I also would like to highlight that the entire experience is transformative, because it will not only expand your knowledge, but also your perspective and network. And you don't need to become an expert in diplomacy to apply. Just like me, I never thought of getting accepted to the diplomacy, but as long as you satisfy the qualifications, then you have a high chance. And for me, what matters is your willingness to learn, collaborate, and engage. And it will also help you be more confident in engaging internationally beyond your local context. And if you are in this Zoom meeting right now, or if you are the one listening to this recorded video later on, this is a reminder for you that we need more young leaders to bridge science, policy, and society with empathy and responsibility. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Paolo. And last but not least, Sharon, what would you say to someone waiting to press the submit button right now?
I think I would add on to what my peers have said, and you've all heard the eclectic backgrounds that we come from and how these eclectic backgrounds really added to the richness of the program, both different cultural backgrounds, different professional backgrounds. So if you're doubting to press the button, please be convinced that you have something to add to this program, both as a professional and as a youth. And also, I wanted to reiterate a big shout out to the ASAF team, which are wonderful and really guide you through this experience. And only for that, I would say, please be convinced.
Thank you very much. And of course, I'll take the compliments to the team back also to the rest of us who are working behind the scenes, but not currently with me in this call. But yes, I want to express, of course, my thank yous to you for joining us today, but also, of course, for joining us for the program last year. Of course, we can do all that we can to organize the program to the best of our abilities, but it's nothing without the participants that actually then take the learnings and make it their own from it. So thank you for being with us here today and for sharing your insights. To the participants in this call, we will continue on, but I will say thank you and goodbye to the alumni who are, of course, happy for you to stay on and listen in, but otherwise we thank you for your time and let you go on with the rest of your day today. Okay, for everyone, bye-bye. And then
Thank you. Best of luck.
Bye, everyone. Then allow me to just set up again with our presentation, because then we will continue to cover some of the questions that have been asked already in the Q&A, but a lot of it is covered in my presentation that I have prepared. But if I skip something, feel free to shout out in the chat that I have missed it. But we will continue to talk about the program as a whole, an overview, and then we'll look more specifically into eligibility and selection criteria. And I see a lot of you have questions specifically about your own situation related to eligibility. So we'll make sure to cover as many of those as we can today to clarify any concerns on that point. So thank you to our alumni, and let's kick on with the program. So of course, we've talked a little bit with our alumni on the different learnings and the different also methodologies that are in the training, but you will have seen this graphic on our website and also in the open call documents, which is the overview of the online training, which is the main part that we will cover on this slide. So as I covered also earlier, the sessions that we run are either in a webinar format or a workshop format, and we run specific themes throughout the different weeks. So here you have an overview of the 6 weeks, plus the welcome session and the networking session that we'll be running ahead of the program to give you an introduction to the flow, what topics will be covered, but also to give you a specific dedicated session to this networking and the peer-to-peer exchanges that we were talking about. So to allow you not only to discuss the topics, which we will do in the workshops on each specific week, but also just to talk about who you are, your interests, your motivations, and what brought you to the program. So this is the overview, and each session on the webinars is 1.5 hours, and the workshop is 2 hours. And this is because we want to allow enough time for you to go into breakout rooms and to talk about the topics with each other. So on each week, it's about 3.5 hours of run sessions. And we will also be putting you all into different study groups. And these study groups are more informal, but an opportunity for you to, beyond the sessions, have a smaller group from the cohort to continue to discuss the topics that were covered each week, ask any questions that you have, and also, again, connect with some people on a more closer basis so that you can build these networks that we were talking about earlier. The sessions require you, of course, we ask you to join them live, but we are familiar that, of course, all of you are working professionals, and it's sometimes difficult to arrange to join live on each session. You will have the opportunity to watch the recording via our e-learning platform afterwards. But I would just in particular highlight that the workshops will mostly be in these breakout rooms and more hands-on activities, which means that if you're not able to join them live, it will be much more difficult to get the proper learning outcomes from them. So keep this in mind when you apply, that you should have the opportunity to at least try to attend the workshops live if you can. Then, for a selected group of participants, you will also be invited to join the Youth Summit, the Asia Europe Youth Summit on Science and Technology Diplomacy. We will select about 40 participants for this on-site event. And as a reference, the online training, as mentioned in the open call documents, will invite about 100 to 120 participants. The summit, as Cindy also mentioned, will be taking place in Jakarta in Indonesia, and it will be taking place between the 19th and 23rd of October. So if you are not available to join on these dates, you can indicate in your your submission form for application, that you are only interested in joining the online training, and this is completely fine and will not at all affect the selection criteria and how we then later also select the people for the training. One thing to note is that we will announce the results of who has been selected for online and on-site when we announce the selection results from the open call. But it does still mean that you need active participation throughout the training to be able to attend the Youth Summit. So we can withdraw your participation if you are not active throughout the online training part, because we want to ensure that there is enough of a foundation that has been built from the online training for when you come on site to be able to have more deeper discussions with your peers, and then also be able to draft this youth communique that I was talking about earlier, which will be the perspectives from you as a group of young professionals on science and technology diplomacy from Asia and Europe. So do look into, again, your availabilities for these dates, or if you're only interested in joining the online training, then you can do so as well. Okay. Then, see, for the training as a whole, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a fully funded program, so there is no application fee or cost involved. All training costs related to the online training will be covered by ASEF, and for those that are invited to join us on site for the Youth Summit, we will be providing a travel subsidy that will cover an economy class ticket to Jakarta and back. And this will be on a reimbursement basis to pay upfront, and then we reimburse you the actual cost of the ticket. And we'll also be able to provide you reimbursement for other transportation costs in Indonesia, including also visa and insurance for those that are needing a visa. And for a lot of countries, this will be a visa on arrival in the country. We also then provide accommodation and meals as per the program for the on-site. And this is for the program dates, not for any requests to extend your training. For those of you who are asking, some are asking via email in regards to costs, because as I mentioned, this is by principle on a reimbursement basis, which means that you pay the costs first yourself, and then we reimburse you upon returning from the summit. But if you're not able to cover these costs because of financial constraints, you can seek support from ASEF to pay the costs upfront. But this is a specific process and only done on an exceptional basis, but this can be requested as part, but will be done after selection and in correlation with us in the ASEF team. So that's just a quick note on this as well. Then eligibility, because I know a lot of you are asking in particular about your role within your institution, and you may have different roles. Which one should I put on my application form? So allow me to run through the first couple of ones and then the highlight related to your role. So first one is that you need to be a citizen of one of our eligible countries in Asia and Europe. The full list of this can be found on our website, but it's only Asia and Europe. So if your country is in North or South America, in Africa, etc., then already by then you can assume that you're not included, but do have a look at these lists online, which is also linked on the websites as well. Then you need to have excellent command of English. This is because all of our program elements are run in English, and we will not have any availability to do translations. You should also be between the ages of 18 to 35. This is a young professionals program, so we're looking at this as the age demographic for the program. Then we are looking for people who are either a young diplomat or a government official, so working within government institution, government agency. And I see a lot of you are asking whether or not your specific agency or institution applies. We accept anyone from STEM, from social sciences, from whichever background. So we're looking here for a really multidisciplinary group because this is where we see also there is the most room for peer-to-peer learning. So you can have any background as long as you're working within the government. So you have a governmental role. And then we're also looking for those working in research and science, working as research and science managers within research or scientific institutions. Again, it could be at a university, it could be at a research facility, whatever it may be. But you should have a managerial role. So you should be managing people, a research fund, a research project, something related to where you have an overarching responsibility for someone beyond yourself and beyond your immediate project. So this is the criteria that we have in mind. If you have multiple roles, then please put the one that is most relevant and closely related to the eligibility criteria as your main role. And you can explain further in your application that you have multiple roles and in which one you are applying in. I see that we have a question about someone who is going to be on leave from their governmental role, but working or studying a master's. If this is the case, I think this is very particular for you, but please put in your governmental role and then you can highlight that you will be returning to this one afterwards and your learnings will be from the program to help further your role within this track. If you are currently working within business, unfortunately, this is not currently within our demographic. So if you're working in a consulting firm, a certain company or something like this is unfortunately not currently within our demographic. So I encourage you to seek out some of our other projects that might be still relevant for you. You can look at the recordings from the webinars from last year's training, which are all publicly available on our website, just to catch up. Or you can also catch up on the recordings from our latest webinar series, Young Minds, Global Bridges, Discovering the Power of Science and Technology Diplomacy, which was for university students and young PhD students and professionals. So if this is something that applies to you, you're a young student, still undergrad or PhD student, then the program is not currently something that you're eligible for, but you can still explore these projects that we have as well. So I'm sending a couple of links for this in the chat for you to have a look. For specific questions related to your role, to ensure that we do not keep up this time here for me to go through each and every one of you, please submit an email to us and describe your role, what you're currently doing, etc. And I can or someone in the team can better reply to you for your specific case and give you more feedback. Then for selection, we're looking at people, of course, who are motivated to participate. So we will be looking for this in your written answers. We're also looking for those that have demonstrated experience in science and technology diplomacy, but this is not, again, an eligibility criteria, which means that you don't have to have this. If you don't, that's completely fine. You can still apply and you can showcase your interest in learning more about the field and learning from the experience. The selection process, we will be looking first for the eligibility criteria, then through the selection criteria, and then we'll do a mapping exercise to ensure that we have a good gender balance and geographical balance within the whole cohort before we make the selection, and we'll notify you expected by the 10th of July. I see that most of the questions that we have at this stage is related to the eligibility in your specific case. So again, would you please put these questions in an email to us and we will be able to evaluate your specific case. The email you can find here at scitech@acef.org. You can also scan the QR code to learn more about the project and get more on the eligibility criteria and everything that I've shared today. I'm so sorry, but my voice is kind of running out. And I have covered most of the points I think covered here in the Q&A as well. And we've been around here for about 1 hour 20. So I think we're going to be wrapping up now. But again, submit your emails to us for us to reply and submit your application before the 21st of June. And we hope to be able to see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to receive your application by the 21st. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you all so much.